to Fantasy Focus. It is Monday, February 5th. My name is Daniel Dopp, joined by Stephania Bell and Mike Clay. Today's show is presented by Geico. Switch to Geico, see all the ways that you could save. Guys, it is Super Bowl week.
Just a round of applause.
Yeah,
I was waiting for that.
was a good opening.
Now we can start. Now we can start the show.
Guys, this is Super Bowl week, the last football game that we have for the entire season. What's going on?
I just realized he's on your shirt.
Andrew Reid. Andy Reid. This is from his Eagles days.
Yeah.
Time's yours. That's his famous
here
phrase.
I thought it was going to be.
You just
all
recognize
in
that
support
now.
of me
right
and
before.
my team.
Well, look, I thought about a Chiefs shirt. And I decided to scale back because you would be here and go with an Andy Reid shirt just to support Andy. So,
Yes.
I
former
noticed
Eagles coach.
Daniel is not wearing his one pride. He could have.
I could have.
What's
But he
under that
did it.
sweatshirt, sir? What's under there?
Nope.
Nope.
It's a band shirt. I
Can't show it.
got a crappy band shirt that you don't know of underneath there. So
Wow,
yeah,
I thought you guys were going to be all in and
Stefania,
support your co-host.
I
for
am
the
all
week.
in. For what it's worth, I am all in on the 49ers. I think that I'm rooting for them. They're the team that I want to win the Super Bowl, in part because as a Lions fan, I want to lose to the best, which means you lose to the team that beat you. So I am rooting for you. Just so you know, I am all in on being a 49ers fan.
Okay.
I do not speak for Mike Clay.
No.
But I think you can safely say, I got no problem with you voting or being a fan of Andy Reid. You're going to just keep.
Here's the
nothing wrong with
thing.
that.
After all last offseason, all the complaining by the players and the Niners fans about the Eagles, and they didn't deserve to be there, and the injury this and Purdy that, and then they almost lost to the Packers, and I was like, oh, what happened this year? And then they came back and win.
But then you
and then
couldn't
they
say
were
that,
losing to the
could
Lions,
you?
and it was like, oh, what's the excuse this year? Then they
you
come
couldn't
back and
say
win.
that,
Yeah.
Could you?
So I don't.
All they do is win, win, win.
I think we should make our. I think we should make our picks at the end of the show.
Yes, I'm with you.
But
I'm with you.
yeah,
All right.
Should be a good game though.
Let me ask you this question really quickly. Stefania, as a 49ers fan, as our resident 49ers fan, when you look at this, just Stephania Bell's thoughts on how the 49ers can beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs on Sunday. What do you guys need to do?
Well, here's what I would like to see happen.
All right.
I think it can happen in a variety of ways. What I would like to see happen is I would like the 49ers to get off to a good start. No more of this come from behind business.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's our strength.
Nope.
It was great that they were able to do it. So sorry against your Lions, but that's not our position of strength.
Agreed.
We like it. Kyle Shanahan has that scripted first series. When they have come out, other than the game I attended on Christmas night against the Ravens, when they came out and put together a great drive down the field and then it didn't go so well after that, I think if they can come out and have a strong drive that takes up time and score, they're going to be in the driver's seat for the rest of the game. And I think the defense, we've all heard, I'm sure you guys have heard this week, all the chatter about the defense and looking back at the film and some of the plays where they weren't playing 100% or assuming somebody else was going to make a tackle. No names mentioned. That will change, and it had better change, right?
Yeah,
This is the
needs to
biggest
change.
game of the year, but
Yep.
I think that's not going to happen twice, especially when you have John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, Fred Warner, everybody on your defense, the whole team talking about it, Nick Bosa. That's not happening again. So I think the defense has to swarm. They have to tackle better. And I think if they play like that, look, Kansas City's defensive corners especially worry me. That's where I think that to me is the biggest worry.
Do we get a shadow? Do we get a L'Jarius Sneed shadow here?
I think he will shadow Brandon Ayuk. That would be my guess, especially because Debo. We know
Just moves
Debo
so
bounces
much.
around, and
Yeah.
he was actually in the slot more last week than he's been most of the season. So I do think we'll have, But if Debo's in the slot, he's going to be on Trent McDuffie anyway. So it's a tough matchup.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy. I mean, this is
No.
going to be. I think this is going to be a tough game. I predicted a close game. We had to do our predictions for ESPN, and I think it's very close. But let me tell you this. Fred Warner was there the last time. George Kittle was there the last time. You know what they were when they played the Chiefs in Miami? They were ahead.
Yeah.
And you know what they did? They lost.
Yeah.
And so they will not get comfortable. They will not get complacent. I feel like we start strong and they're going to play all the way through. And that's really at the end of the day all I ask for. But I would love nothing more than to be able to silence the Brock Purdy critics. I mean, I think that for me is my wish for him going into the offseason, because I think he's done nothing short of exceed every expectation if there were none when he got drafted, but then also coming off his torn UCL that he had repaired when people were wondering if he would even have the strength to make the throws down the field during the regular season.
Yep.
He put all of that to rest, and yet he's still got the critics all over the place. So I would really love for him to be able to lead this team to a victory and just have everybody go quiet.
I'm fine with that. We could silence the Purdy critics. I just don't want you to silence the Eagles fans. So that's why I don't know if I could cheer for the 49ers in this one. But I will say this. I think full body of work this season, Niners clearly the better team here, maybe the best team in the league.
I agree.
Maybe Baltimore. But Kansas City's just peaking at the right time. That's what makes this interesting. But I'll tell you what. The last time something like this happened, when the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl, I mean, they were better throughout the whole season, but the better team from week 1 to the Super Bowl was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that year. And no one wanted to pick the Bucs because the Chiefs were the hot team and they had Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
And the Bucs won that game. So sometimes just being the overall better team, the overall better body of work matters. So
I feel like it would be just as such. I mean, if you're Kyle Shanahan, who's been, the bridesmaid but never the bride, and it's so close so many times.
Yep.
And he and John Lynch have worked together with the support of the organization. And I think they've just been so close for so long. I feel like they've earned this opportunity to just finally win it all. And I think it's big relief for everyone because there's so much pressure. And to come so close, every year we have the conversation, how many times can you come that close and not win it all? So my hope is for all of them to just be able to enjoy that victory at the end. Chiefs have had it. They've had a lot of them. It's not, no one's going to be...
49ers have had their fair share of victories in the Super Bowl as well, Stephania.
Yeah, but not recently, because who's been to them? Me. When the Ravens beat them in New Orleans, when the Chiefs beat them in Miami, and you know what?
You ready for one to go your way?
I'm ready for one to go.
by the way,
fair.
I do have a couple bucks on this game.
Oh.
So preseason bet, I took the Dolphins. My daughter Casey took the Chiefs. If the Chiefs win, I owe her $5. If the Dolphins would have won, she would have owed me 5 hugs. So, I mean, this is a big one for me.
hugs for
Okay,
you.
I don't get any hugs. I don't get any
right.
hugs, but I'm still have $5 up for grabs.
Yeah.
So.
Really quickly, just so that we're not accused of only being a 49ers podcast, Mike, on the other side of the ball, this is one of those things where the Chiefs, I don't want to say that they didn't look good all year, but they didn't look like we had expected all season long, right? This has recently been the Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce kind of refining each other over the last couple of games. Plus, you still have Rashee Rice, who had an awesome rookie season, and Isaiah Pacheco was running his butt off out there every single time you see him. So when you look at the Chiefs, what do you think they need to do in order to be able to beat the 49ers?
I think you just have to hope the Niners play like they have the last couple of weeks early on because they've just underperformed and the other teams were able to get Green Bay, of course, and Detroit both had those games in hand. And they just couldn't finish it off. So if Purdy makes a couple mistakes early on, like you did against your Lions and like you did against the Packers, you got to catch the ball, intercept the football, and run it into the end zone. If they don't do that, then it's just not going to happen for them because the Niners are too good. They're not going to beat them for 60 minutes. So
that was my big prop for this week was taking a Brock Purdy over half of an interception, only because I feel like when you looked at that Packers game, first off, he had 10 off-target throws. Most he had all season long. It looked like he had some problems there, and there should have been some interceptions. And then against the Lions, he also had 7 throws off target, third most he's had all season, which is not what you want. They had that Malcolm Rodriguez interception, and don't even get me started on the Kendall Vildur. That should have been an interception. But Brock Purdy has unfortunately left some plays out on the field. So if the Chiefs can get to him, force some turnovers, I think that's how you're really going to see the Chiefs be able to take advantage of them. So
I agree. That's what makes me nervous about picking the Niners in this game. Is Purdy going to play how he did most of the season? Or is it going to be these interceptable? There it is.
Yep.
Passes that we've seen really predominantly over the last couple of weeks. It's been a problem, yeah.
Yep.
We'll
All right.
see.
We're going to pick the game at the end. I'm going to save it. Going to let everybody sit in it. We will pick the game at the end of the show.
I'm sure everybody wonders.
No one knows where you're going to go, Stephania.
with
No one knows. All right. Hey, just like last week, though, one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to dive into a big snake draft at the wide receiver position. Stephania and I did running backs last week, looking at a way too early 2024
How did that
rankings.
poll come out?
I think you
I
probably
won.
you
I
probably
crushed
won.
it.
Yeah.
Pretty
We don't need
sure.
to go back and look at that one again.
I think
That's
we
just,
should.
yeah.
I think at the end of the podcast I was leading
We'll
like
see if
75,
we can find it.
25%.
Yeah, I don't know if we have enough time.
We'll
see
check
if
it a
we can
year from
find
now.
it.
See what it looks like. That's what we'll pick a winner.
Whatever. These are way too early drafts.
Yeah, it's just for fun. This is an excuse just to talk about the players, work
Way
through
too
some
early.
names, top 30. We're going to try to get the 30 here. So
As
it'll
a
be fun.
reminder, we still have the draft. You still have free agency. You have coaches that have changed places. You have offensive coordinators.
To goodness, it is. I need one of those sheets they have on like Law and Order or like those wall things where you're like, this one moved over here and this peg to this one went over here because it is so hard to keep track of where everybody is now.
That's why this is a way too early exercise that we're not going to hold anybody to. It's just fun being able to talk about how we feel like some of these players ended up.
Okay.
Are you talking about coaches?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm talking about coaches,
See?
coordinators.
see, she has me blocked on Twitter.
That's what it
I
is.
knew it.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
I like every day I post an updated sheet where
Oh, I know,
everyone
but
is.
no.
Is this Coach here? Is this just-
I love what you're doing.
Yeah, sure you do.
My eyesight doesn't love it. I
Oh,
can't.
that's what-
Come on, that one has some big font.
The font is like I need my magnifying glass out is too.
that's
right.
so good.
Can
All
you
right.
print the extra what did they call that? The readers.
Cheat sheet for
readers?
seniors or something we need? Like, is that what we're doing here? I think the font's just big enough for that one. The free agency one is little. Because
It's
how are you
small.
going to fit all them names on there?
There's a lot.
But the coaching one,
It's
come on,
not.
Stephania.
No,
Come on.
I know.
All right, let's dive
Anyway.
into this. We're going to do, each one of us is going to pick a wide receiver. We got 10 rounds, 3 picks per round. We're going to
gotta
start
write
with
these
Stephania.
down.
You probably won't want to write it down. Again, way too early conversation around our top 2024 wide receivers. I'm likely not going to pick a rookie. Mike, are you going to pick a rookie in this one? You keep sticking with the guys.
Not yet. And you'll see why. Because as we get to 20 through 30, you're going to be like, there's still some star players on this list. So
Yep.
not necessarily, obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr. would be the obvious name. You can make a case for him top 30. We might rank him top 30 after the draft. Could be
Once
a
we
good
know where he's
landing
at.
spot. But
Yep.
I don't know that I'm going to pick him here. We'll see how the draft goes.
All right. So without further ado, Stephania Bell in the way too early 2024 wide receiver draft for the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. The Bellettes choose.
Jawan Jet.
How'd you know? I think I'm gonna. So I have a disclaimer
Okay.
before I make my first
All
pick,
right.
which is that when I was looking, I actually did prep for the show, believe it or not. When I was looking at all the receivers, when I was looking at the top guys, where I would be like 1, 2, 3, I have questions.
Yeah.
I have a question about the health of a quarterback in one particular team who's coming
Sure.
off of season-ending surgery.
Sure.
I have a question about the health of a player and who's going to even be his quarterback
That's a
for
great
another
question.
of the top 3.
Yep.
And so even though this is just for fun and we don't really know the answer to all those questions, I could not pick them as my number 1 pick, knowing that I have major question marks. So I was like, where do I know the quarterback and the receiver are still going to be the same and probably execute pretty much the same offense?
In the D.
CD Lamb. He becomes my number 1.
I like it.
Yeah, it's tough
That's
to
my
argue
number
with
1 right
that
now.
because of the fact that everything that you just lined up, right? They've got the quarterback coming back. When we talk about some of these other wide receivers, like you just mentioned, there'll be a few things that we could talk about there. But this season was unbelievable, Mike. Is there a reason why this would change going into 2024? Would they become more run heavy or more balanced? Or does it feel like, in all honesty, like outside of CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks is a far and away number 2. He's not like a 1B in this offense.
I don't think so. I think it took a month to get going, and then
Just
it
gonna say
was
that.
all. Yeah, I imagine his numbers. Look, he had 135
Filling it
catches.
up as wide receiver 1,
He was number 1, yeah.
which
Well,
is crazy
over-
because
yeah.
it took a month to get going. Like he had to go have a conversation
yeah.
about being upset that he wasn't
you see
getting
it on,
targeted more.
you see it on the screen if you're watching. Almost 1,750 yards, 14 touchdowns. He
135
also had,
catches.
by the way, 20 end zone targets. Second most a wide receiver. Was busy near the goal line.
Wow.
And between the 20s, you name it. Huge target share. We were waiting for CD to get to this next level, and he did that this past season. So I'm with you. And part of that is the concerns with Jefferson. Not super worried about the injury now. I mean, he was back playing, right? And playing at a high level.
not him, but like
the quarterback
the
position
quarterback,
is the question,
he's
right?
the one. He's the one. In case you
That's how I
didn't
broke the
understand
tie.
my code, my code was the injury I was worried about is in Cincinnati,
Right.
But in
Gotcha.
in
Yep.
Minnesota, I was more worried about
Is his quarterback
who's going to
returning?
be
Correct,
is his
yep.
quarterback returning to him.
Okay, so I'm with you. I would have taken Lamb first. So nice.
All right. I as well would have taken Lamb first.
I'm really
but
just trying
Stephania got
to
him off the
get
board.
Mike's vote for the Niners in the Super Bowl. So
I'm doing great, just like the marathon.
I have the second pick in our wide receiver draft, guys. I'm going to make this pretty easy. I am going to go with Justin Jefferson
Okay.
because I still think that he's fantastic, regardless of who he has under center. Ideally, hopefully, we get a deal done with Kirk Cousins and you just keep that train rolling. But he has been so good. And he's still so young. There's not a lot that when I look at this situation, whatever quarterback they bring into this offense, their game plan is still going to be get the ball to that guy. And that's still Justin Jefferson. So I'm going to take him number 2. I don't think that there's a whole lot else I need to say.
Yeah, I'm with you. It was third. If you look at his full games, it was third in fantasy points per game this season. So he was still outstanding. And that was with Kirk Cousins missing for a chunk of the season.
Mullins and, yeah.
Third pick then, this kind of makes it easy for me. We go Lamb, Jefferson. I'm going Tyreek Hill with the next pick. This guy was fantastic this past season, second on a points per game basis, had a 33% target share. That was a career high. So they just found new ways to get the ball in his hands as much as possible, led the position in receiving yards, touchdown receptions, and he missed a game. So Just the fact that he put up these huge numbers of almost 1,800 yards, missing a game, and basically half of another one was terrific. Super efficient. Has led receivers in yards per route run each of the last 2 seasons.
Wow.
He is just year after. He's had such a high floor. He's basically money to be top 10, but he's really shown his high ceiling as of late.
Question for you, because I think it's going to be a topic going into the season. People are going to talk about the age of Tyreek Hill.
28, 29? How old is he going to be for this season?
He's going, I think 29 going on 30.
I
he's in that range,
think he's hitting 30, or I thought he was hitting 30, but that's sort of perceived as, you know.
I don't think that's not an area I'm worried about yet.
Well,
there's no signal that he's lost a step.
Correct.
Right. So I'm not worried about that. Yeah, not yet.
But I'm just saying this is what people will say is, but he's shown, like, he's still putting up the fastest GPS numbers. He's still, and remember, they have a speed team in Miami. They're having speed contests all the time. When I go down to training camp, they have all these little side things going where they're competing during camp to see who's the fastest. He's still winning all the time against everybody who's younger than him. There's nothing to suggest he's lost a step.
I kind of wonder if the strategy with Miami based on the last 2 seasons is like draft a bunch of Dolphins, move them up your board, and then after like week 4, week 5, trade them. You know what I mean? Because we're seeing Tua really fell off again, second year in a row.
He did.
Remember, 2 years ago, he had the injuries on and off, but he didn't win. He started off, 8-0, and then didn't win again the rest of the year, something like that. I mean, he really fell off as it got colder. And maybe that's the strategy with Miami. I think there might be something to that. It's kind of interesting.
I'll say
may
this
depend
too.
on their schedule.
That in their schedule, which is going to tell us a lot.
I like what I've seen out of Tyreek the last 2 years, though. It's just it's funny the way that it's worked out this way. From Tua, 170 targets 2 years ago, 171 this year, 119 catches each of the last 2 seasons, and over 1,700 receiving yards in both seasons with Tua. The idea that he had 13 touchdowns this year was just unbelievable. But regardless, the idea that in back-to-back years, basically 120 receptions and 1,700 receiving yards, that's unbelievable. He will be 30, turns 30 in March. So going into the season, he will be 30 years old. We'll wait and see how much that moves down Tyreek and Mike's
and you can make a case for him number 1 overall, but that the age thing kind of breaks the tie a little bit there for me. Not to mention the late season fall off for that offense. Yeah.
All right, Stephania, you're back on the clock. Oh, Mike, actually, it's a snake
it's me.
draft
Yeah, we're snaking this one. So this makes it easy because I'll mention the guy you mentioned earlier, Stephania. Jamar Chase is going to be who I'm going to go with here. So good start, Tyreek and Jamar Chase. 16 games for Chase. It felt like just with Burrow out and Chase kind of beat up, it felt like he missed more time, but he was active for 16 games, had 100 catches, over 1,200 yards, and 7 touchdowns. 9 full games with Joe Burrow. I looked at those. Just in 9 full games with Burrow, 20.1 fantasy points per game. That would have ranked 6th at wide receiver for the season. So it felt like a down year, but overall, and it was, but overall he was still delivering as a mid-range wide receiver 1. That 20.1 per game was down from 20.2 the year before. That shows you that he was still playing at a high level with Joe Burrow. Top 5 in fantasy points per game the prior 2 seasons as well. I fully expect him in his prime. We're not worried about age with him. He's in his mid-20s. Chase is set up beautifally for a bounce-back season.
Now, don't they have T. Higgins contract? Free agent, I mean. And who else?
Tyler Boyd's back.
Boyd is back.
Yeah, we'll see what they do at tight end. I could see them addressing that. Joe Mixon's still under contract, but
Andre
Yoshavas.
Still there.
Dynasty
Rinston.
stash.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
But you were worried a little bit about the Joe Burrow conversation, right?
I am, and I don't want to be. I want. Look, there's nothing to suggest that there's anything off, but I just don't think people realize that scaphoidal ligament reconstruction is a big deal, and that's what he had, and it's not a common injury, and we haven't seen it in a quarterback of his caliber. We haven't seen it. So we don't know, and your wrist is kind of important as a quarterback. So the key for him is that you need stability after an injury like this. That's why you do the surgery to restore stability. But then the risk is scar tissue. And you can't have such scarring that it changes the amount of mobility that you have available at your wrist. So it's providing the stability, which I have no doubt that's not going to be a problem. The question is, will it affect his release in any sort of way? Will he be able to get the mobility back so he's throwing exactly how he was? Those things can take time. And until you're playing in game situations, it may be a question of him working through that to get back to where he was before. And what does that translate to when we're starting to see the Bengals play? That is my concern. It has nothing to do with Jamar Chase, who obviously is a phenomenal talent.
And we'll learn so much throughout the offseason. Hopefully we see some good things.
I'm setting you up actually for all the storylines that are going to be hitting me when we come. Kirk Cousins and
it just felt like everything went wrong. He had 100 catches. That's a down year for Jamar Chase. 100
go right.
catches.
Yeah. Yep. I'm with you on that. All right, Stephania, you're on the clock in the second round of the Fantasy Focus Wide Receiver.
Wait, isn't it you?
Oh,
we're coming back to you.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, that's on me.
We're going this way.
It's not the way that this works. Okay.
I know, because we're not set up.
This makes
you pass.
I know I'm not passing because I started to try to figure out who am I going to take because I was worried Stephania was going to take my
Come on, this is an easy one.
I know it. I knew it.
I thought about him over Chase. Yeah.
Honestly, it's so easy with the way that he is utilized in this Lions offense. Again, a top five offense with Jared Goff under center. Amon-Ra St. Brown is locked in as the de facto number one. Even with Sam Laporta coming on as a rookie and him being heavily involved there, it's obvious that Amon-Ra St. Brown is the safety valve. And I like him being able to get a little bit of touchdown work this year. I want to see a little bit more. I want to be able to get him in the end zone. But he gets so much targets, so many targets. He has a huge target share and is a major part of this offense going forward. That's not going to change.
Yeah, 14 career end zone targets. I'd like to see more work near the goal line for him. But that just tells me that there's more meat on the bone for Amon-Ra St. Brown.
So he had 10 touchdowns without...
And he had 6 end zone targets, which was 44th at wide receiver.
There's still room there.
Yeah, there absolutely is. I was laughing yesterday. I was watching the Pro Bowl, and Amon-Ra, he would have 9 for 100 and like 2 times. I was like, it's a Pro Bowl. He's still doing the same stat line. He still has the same stat line.
But also, I was just going to reference a Pro Bowl. I wondered if you guys had watched, because what impressed me was how hard he was playing. Like he was. Not everybody is going. They were all pretty into it. I think the flag football is a great idea. I love how it's playing out. But he was so psyched. He was celebrating he was so pumped. And I was like, this is great to see, like, volume-wise, too.
Yep.
Has caught over 70% of his targets, 73.3% of his targets in his career, most in the NFL. I mean, such attention to detail. He had a random drop as we know, what game that was. It doesn't happen very often. So hard on himself. Like, I just think he's one of the most talented receivers at being consistent, despite the volume. I mean, you get thrown the ball more. It's more opportunity for you to drop it.
Make mistakes, and
he does not. I love him, I wish I was drafting him in my lineup.
Yeah, just kind of being used a little like Keenan Allen, which isn't a problem. You know, you can have another decade of great fantasy production, but we would like to see a little bit more usage near the goal line. It just helps. It's just going to help him sustain this production long term.
Absolutely.
But a great pick. I love it.
All right, I went back-to-back NFC North wide receivers with Jay Jett and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Stephania, where are you going with your second pick?
It pains me. It pains me.
You're doing it's a Ram. It's a Ram.
How do you know? You know.
DeMarcus Robinson.
I thought it was going to be an Eagle, but okay.
No. If I'm picking somebody in the NFC West, it pains me. But I just love this kid. I love him so much. He was such a revelation this year, and that's Puka Nacua, who just, by the way, saw him out at the Pro Bowl yesterday. This kid, what registered to me the most was his absolute toughness. And that no matter how much he got banged up, he was still making plays.
Yep.
And that created a trust level for Matthew Stafford with him that, it's interesting with Cooper Kupp being injured to start the season. Matthew Stafford was forced out of that relationship to start trusting a little more. And he was going to find the guy he trusted most. And that was Puka Nacua, who then he continued to go to even after Cooper Kupp came back. So, wide receiver 4 last season overall. Isn't that's crazy?
And speaking of meat on the bone, look at that touchdown number, 6. There's room for growth there. When you see that sort of volume, and he averaged 14.2 yards per catch, so you would expect more touchdowns. He only had 6 on the season. If he sees similar volume next season, 9, 10 touchdowns, certainly on the table for Nacua. By the way, went 12 full games with Cooper Kupp. He had a higher target share, more catches, way more yards, 1 less touchdown, but more fantasy points per game. Was 12th in fantasy points per game with Cooper Kupp in the mix there. So all good things for Nacua.
It's also his build. I mean, I just talked about his toughness and his ability to play despite being banged up and injured. And part of that is because he is big. He's tough to bring down. Led all wide receivers in yards after contact with 247. He is not a catch and go to the ground kind of guy.
Yeah. No, he definitely is a fighter.
Yeah, there was just that question, once Cooper Kupp comes back, is he going to disappear and just be as like mid, as the kids say? No,
Yes.
wait, no, mid means bad.
Mid
right?
is bad.
Mid is
Meh.
bad. So not mid.
Is he still
Mid
gonna
is
be
in what mid
preem?
actually means.
Is he still going to be preem? Right?
Preem? Is that it?
Yeah, premium. Yeah.
Preem.
Yeah.
So premium means
good. And mid
means
is
bad.
bad.
What's in the middle?
No,
So mid doesn't mean in the middle.
no, there is no middle.
There's no word.
Wait,
so a
what's-
wide
what's
receiver
meh?
3.
What's
Yeah.
meh?
We have to
meh.
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 That might be
Meh.
the
Meh
middle.
is the
That
middle.
could be the
That
middle.
could be
Maybe
meh.
the middle.
That meh.
Yeah.
Like you start him, but
Yeah.
he's not okay. But he
This
wasn't
is
that.
us
He wasn't that.
desperately trying to be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, fellow kids.
For what it's worth, I will say this.
Why
Cooper
did we
Kupp,
get that sound?
Cooper Kupp only outscored Puka Nacua 3 times this year. So even once Cooper Kupp came back, you gave all like the season long stats. Like it was still Puka Nacua is locked in, it feels like, as Matthew Stafford's #1 wide receiver on this team. Really excited to see what year 2 is going to look like for him as well. Also excited to see, is Cooper Kupp going to end up as one of our top 30 wide receivers? I'm interested to see how that's going to play out. Stephania, come back to you for your third pick. First pick of the third round, because it's a snake draft.
Snake draft.
Oh,
Yeah, it's getting me too,
So
in case you remembered
confused.
earlier
I
in the
was so
show.
I still see an
confused.
eagle out there.
I know.
I see a
couple of 49ers.
I see a Bill that's a little bit unknown. He was
Yeah.
asked if he's going to be
TBD.
back with the Bills next year. He said he
I
doesn't know.
I'm staying away from that. Don't love that one. Don't love.
Ray McLeod, I still see her on my board. I mean,
Ray Jawan. I don't know where to go with this. Wow. I wasn't ready. I forgot because we're not sitting. I feel like I'm in
I know.
grade school. We need to sit
I
in the right
agree.
order.
I talked with Mike about this before the show. I was like, do you sit there? How is it we going to do this? How's this order going to go? I'm filibustering a little bit, Stefania.
I
but
know
there's
you
only
are
so much
because
that I can do for you.
I know. I'm that person.
so who do you got in
the
Puppy
draft.
Bowl this year?
I'm always in on the sheep.
By the
eaters.
way, I think that gives the 49ers an edge. They had a little visit with doggies before the Puppy Bowl.
We've reached a point now where people are looking for anything. We're looking at the stars and the full moons, and the Chiefs are 19-1 when
You don't
there's.
believe in astrology? What
no.
sign are you?
Don't tell Liz, but no.
Don't tell Liz.
I don't
Do you know? You don't know what your sign is?
I don't know.
I'm a Scorpio.
I'm a Taurus, and I can't believe you don't know what you
Oh,
are.
we're close then. I'm May 21st, I think.
Oh, you're a Gemini. Because
Oh,
I'm
that's
on
right,
the
that's
cusp of
right.
That's right.
Oh, that's right. He knew
So
that.
who's going to win? Now that we know that, who's going to win the Super Bowl? Like, see, it
Niners.
doesn't matter.
Okay.
One of the cool things about Taurus is they're good at making quick decisions.
4 Tauruses?
Easy, fast, quick decisions.
No. Okay.
Stefania.
I'm gonna go with DJ Moore.
Ooh, okay.
And
Wow, okay.
I just a little bit of an impulse buy here.
Yep.
But I liked what I saw this
Yes.
year.
Yep.
I liked the rapport that was developing there. I'm not under the impression anything's going to change, even though there was a lot of chatter about how that might. And he was wide receiver 6 overall last season. Like I think he's one of those players that. Excuse us.
I was celebrating
what?
your pick. We all love DJ Moore.
Nice.
I
Thanks,
set off
Mike.
the alarm.
Pump up the.
Pump up the
Yeah, that
jam.
was my alarm.
That's-
Yeah, that was my.
Okay.
No, that's going to happen every Monday all year until the summer. So just get ready for that.
That's so good.
You've been warned.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, I feel like it's not the sexy pick where you're like flash but remarkably productive in a way, maybe because the Bears as a team didn't feel like they excelled that much, but his relationship with his quarterback was undeniable. And he certainly produced and a lot of targets in the end zone, 9 touchdowns for a team that didn't score that much.
Yes, just super effective. Obviously, that one huge game, week winning, massive, was like 49 points, something like that. He was terrific. So I like it. And new regime coming in here offensively. We're going to have a new scheme. Shane Waldron comes over from Seattle. Pete Carroll out, so he moved on from Seattle to Chicago. So that should add some juice to this offense as well. Hopefully we get a healthy Justin Fields or a rookie quarterback, which could change kind of how we feel about more if you have a rookie quarterback versus Fields. So that's something we'll keep an eye on, and that's going to determine where we rank him.
It's going to be very fun to look at the top of this draft because not only are we going to have 3 rookie quarterbacks that will likely be starters somewhere, we'll also have Justin Fields that may get moved to someone else as a part of the trade package in order
Just
to
not
get
the
them.
Raiders. He's not going to the Raiders. Luke Getzey goes from Chicago. He was an OC that
don't
got
do that.
fired, and he
Yes.
went to the Raiders. That suggests Fields won't be going there, but could go somewhere else. You're right.
How likely do we think that is to happen?
I think it's pretty likely. I think it's no like inside source or something, but it's definitely on the table. I would say. I'm sure they're evaluating. I know Field feels strongly. He said last week that there's a good chance that happens. So certainly
And doing Adam
Certainly a
Schefter's
possibility.
podcast today as well, one of the things that him and I talked about was the ability.
dropper.
You may pick that name up.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that, guys. Yeah, but I asked him about this because that was one of the things. Like, do you get more draft capital with Justin Fields, or do you think it's better to move the pick? And it just feels like Justin Fields might get moved more often than not. So
I would not
we'll
be
see.
shocked.
Yeah,
We'll
I
see how that goes.
might come to regret my third pick.
I don't know.
but
DJ Moore, I'll tell you what, Stephania, regardless of what happens, DJ Moore,
He's
is a
shown
stud.
himself to
He
be
showed how
quarterback proof,
unbelievable
actually,
good he is.
if you
Yes.
look at his moves thus far.
If I might look at my third round pick, guys, I'm going to go AJ Brown here. I realized the second half of the season, Mike, wasn't great. Everybody knows that. But when you look at how this Eagles team started, and AJ Brown specifically, from weeks 3 to week 9, the dude was basically wide receiver 1 in the NFL.
Sure was.
He had 8 or 9 games over 15 fantasy points. I mean, he was one of those guys that first half of the season absolutely carried you with a number of 20 and 30-point games. I don't think things are going to change a whole lot other than the fact that hopefully the Eagles figure out how to play offense again, because I have no idea what happened the second half of the season.
Well, speaking of coordinator
I don't think we have enough
changes,
time to talk about it.
Kellen Moore.
There you go.
Kellen Moore coming in to take over the Eagles offense. We'll see how that goes. But I think it's funny you picked him at 8 because 8th in points per game this past season, 8th in points per game 2 years ago, top 8 in yards per route run all 5 NFL seasons, top 8 in target share in 4 straight seasons. So kind of that's his magic number, I guess.
That's
He'll
where he's
finish
at
8th this year. But
Hey, I
I'm
like
with you.
that. All right, I'm going AJ Brown. Where are you going with your pick?
All right, I'm up. Do I have 2 here?
You have 2.
We're all
back to
mixed
back.
up here. Okay,
Yep.
first one for me, I'm going to go Stephon Diggs. I don't know if he's going to end up in Buffalo or
Still
elsewhere.
under contract, right? He just signed a deal last year.
He did.
So
Yeah, he did. But obviously, targets drifted off in the second half of the season this year. His targets overall actually ended up compared to the year before, but catches were down, yards way down, touchdowns way down. He is in that age 30 range as well, so you wonder if there's still some drop off. But he's still one of the better players in the NFL and has top 5 upside. So to get him at this point, I'll take it. I'm not super concerned about the second half drop off, especially if he goes to a different offense and as a good quarterback. It's
Absolutely.
a possibility. Worst case scenario, he's back with the Bills and
also has a good quarterback in
I
Josh
don't want to
Allen
say worst
still.
case, but
I know that it's interesting that you just said that worst case scenario.
yeah, that shouldn't be. I shouldn't have said worst case because it's a good case to be in the Bills
Yes,
offense. So
yes.
poor choice of words. But the fact is, if he ends up staying put, happy. If he goes elsewhere, he's still going to be. He's still going to have a heavy
I
target
thought you were
share.
implying that maybe it wasn't all sunshine and roses, and it might be a
It might not be. It's hard to say. It's hard to get a read on what's going on there. But it's been. I mean, that happened with Diggs in Minnesota as well. So it's hard to say what.
It does
What's up
concern
there?
me though. That's I mean, just I don't want the guy on my team who dropped off at the end of last season.
You don't love that? Yeah, I just drafted AJ Brown for what it's worth. So
Which
there
is
you go.
why I also skipped over him.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
I didn't have a good vibe.
All right, well,
Mike, you got a
speaking
second
of
wide receiver?
this isn't a guy that's dropped off. This is a guy that has to find some good quarterback play, and he's going to have to break out season.
This is great value because he was like wide receiver 3 coming into this year.
What's that?
How do you know
what
who
think I'm
he's picking?
Who do you think you're picking?
I'm picking Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson, of course. You took him as the 3rd wide receiver in our fantasy draft at the fantasy marathon.
Yeah,
if you
was
remember
he
correctly.
3rd? He was. It took him at the turn, right? He was like the 8th pick
Was it? I
overall.
don't
So
know.
anyway, I'm going Garrett Wilson here. I still think the guy is the real deal. The volume has been terrific.
great.
Actually led all receivers in pass routes this past season. Was 6th in targets as a rookie. Was 4th this past year. Still had a bunch of big games this year, despite all the quarterback issues. Only 3 touchdowns for him. It's unbelievable. 7 career touchdowns, and it's not his fault. The guy has had so much volume, and he makes plays. It's just been quarterback play. So, by the way, check this out. I thought this was interesting. Since he's been drafted, he's 4th at receiver in targets.
Okay.
The rest of the top 10, all superstars: Adams, Hill, Lamb, Diggs, Amon-Ra, AJ Brown, Pittman, Jefferson, and Chase. Wow. Garrett Wilson is the only one of those group. Like, he's averaging 12.6 fantasy points per game. All the other 9 guys I listed averaging 18.7. I mean, that's not a Garrett Wilson problem.
No.
It's not. The guy is a first-round pick 2 years ago. The breakout's coming. Aaron Rodgers, healthy next year.
Helps to unlock that.
It's Wilson season.
Yep. I'm
It's coming.
totally with you on that. If he had fallen to me, that's who I was going to take here.
There you go.
Instead, I'm going to go the opposite direction and go with an old man.
I know who you're taking.
Maybe
Devontae Adams.
Oh
Yeah.
no, I didn't.
Yep. Is that who you
I
thought
thought
it
it
was
was.
gonna take?
I thought it was.
No, I did
another
not think
old
you were.
man.
I was hoping you were going to take Devontae Adams, but I knew as an ageist that you would take Garrett Wilson.
right.
So
You get it.
But I'll tell you what, Devontae Adams, 177 targets, was still 2nd in the NFL this year. I understand that Devontae did not look like the Devontae that we had seen the last couple of seasons. By the way, quarterback play was, can we say, suspect in Las Vegas.
Yeah, they
to
need
say
to
the
address
least.
that. Yep.
Yeah, so that's something that hopefully Antonio Pierce and this new coaching staff is going to address over the offseason. We'll figure out how that works, whether or not Davante Adams is still in Vegas or maybe he's somewhere else. Not sure what that is going to look like. 103 catches, over 1,100 receiving yards, still 8 touchdowns. I get that he's another year older, but Davante Adams at this point is still so good as long as they're going to keep giving him the ball. There's no one that I can take over top of him. He's still a de facto superstar to me.
Yeah, I think it's a safe high floor play. His efficiency really dropped off this past year, and he is going into his age 31 season. Minor concern there, but I think where he lands in our ranks come, the summer will be the quarterback. Who is the quarterback for the Raiders? We don't know that right now.
Yep. All right, Stephania, you got 2 picks back to back.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be something fun. Yeah, Antonio Pierce has got a lot to be able to figure out there. All right, you got 2 picks, Miss Bell.
So I'm going to go with
You
somebody.
can do both of them?
I'm gonna
Do it.
Stop it. This young man, I was touting not coming into this season, but coming into last season, because I had been down at training camp. Everybody was talking about him. It felt like he really had a lot of growth in the offseason, but he just didn't have the quarterback play to make him break out as a star. And you know what changed this year?
It's weird to just throw Brock Purdy under the bus like that.
That's tough, yeah.
Didn't have the quarterback play?
That's all right.
And then C.J. Stroud came along.
Heck yeah. Look at
I
that.
thought it was going to be a Niner. I was ready for a Niner there.
Listen,
Okay.
Homer
I still
that
don't
I
know which
am.
one this is going to be, though. Which one of these 2 wide receivers are you talking about?
It's going to be Nico Collins.
All right, I like
who I absolutely love. And if you've I've watched his growth as a wide receiver, but also, I mean, man, it's hard to argue with the quarterback who is just the volume of air yards in that offense every single game. So the opportunities are there, and he didn't even play every single game last year. So Nico Collins coming into next season, I think the sky's the limit. He was wide receiver 12 overall last season, and that was with a rookie quarterback starting as a rookie. Now you think healthy C.J. Stroud, who, by the way, made an awesome play in the Pro Bowl. Did you see that touchdown pass? Incredible. Who is not coming in as a rookie anymore. So just think of the comfort level between these two coming into next year, which means they start out of the gate just terrific.
And how about this? Where do you think Nico Collins finished in snaps and routes? He finished in the same slot among receivers. Where do you think he finished?
Top 10.
55th.
What?
He finished 55th at wide receiver in snaps and routes, and he was wide receiver 12.
Fifth?
You know what that sounds like to me?
Super efficient.
Sounds
productive.
like there's an opportunity for...
Yeah, there is.
That sounds like very similar to A.J. Brown with the Tennessee Titans, where like his numbers, his production was off the chart in spite of the fact that the volume wasn't there.
Yeah, there's meat on the bone. And with C.J. Stroud there, they're going to be throwing the ball plenty. And remember, they were trying... I mean, Robert Woods for a chunk of the season had like a 20% target share. Noah Brown had big games.
Yes, they did.
If Nico stays healthy and on the field, the sky is massive.
And they
for
still
him.
have, obviously, Tank Dell was injured late in the season, so they have
But that's it, really.
Yeah,
I mean, you have Noah Brown, but like those are the 2 featured guys. That
they were
should
the
be
2 featured guys,
yeah.
and I think and Nico to me is the clear number 1.
Is that when you say clear? Is that because of like you like the size, you like the body, you like the, or do you think that there's something in the game? Because that's part of the. I'm sorry, that's a weird way to say that. So let me rephrase.
No. I'm just kidding. But I think so, and I just think that to me that was who he was looking for as his number 1.
I like the idea of finding a 6'4" wide receiver. Not that I don't like 5'8" Tank Dell as well, but like if I've got to pick one of these 2 guys, I like the guy that's a bigger target. That
He's also just his route running has improved. If again, watching him over the last couple of years, I think he's starting. You know, we used to talk about how wide receiver. Now we're seeing them basically show up a little bit earlier than their rookie season. But we used to say it would take, a few years in the league before you'd really start to see the maturation of wide receiver. And I think that is the case with Nico Collins, but part of it was everything else around him. But I think he has really developed into this player that they wanted him to be.
Look, with Stroud here, and he's not going to scramble a lot, plenty of room for both.
Yeah.
Both guys.
Yeah.
They could
Agree with
both
that.
be top 15. It could be like Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Higgins, Tate, whatever you want to call it. Like there's room for 2 guys here.
All right.
Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown.
Stephania, you just closed out the chapter of the 4th round of the wide receiver draft as we continue to matriculate down our wide receiver draft. 5th round. This is where we're going to call it. Once we get to the 5th round, we're going to get a little bit faster from here on out.
Yep.
So give me your number 5 wide receiver that you want to draft this year.
I'm going to go with Mike Evans.
Okay.
I mean,
Wow.
here's the thing. Mike Evans all he does is score touchdowns for Tampa Bay. And by the way, last year, I just can't tell you how many fantasy teams, maybe I'm going to have hold over some bias from last year. Nobody wanted him. You guys remember this?
Yeah.
Everybody was like, what do we do with Mike Evans? We don't know what's going to happen with Tom Brady not being there. Well, the resounding support for Baker Mayfield after the season he put together this year from the coaches, from the players, including Mike Evans, who was like, he belongs here. They've clearly established their own rapport. And Mike Evans proved to everyone that he's still got it. And he's still the guy that Baker Mayfield, I believe, is going to look for in the end zone. And that's part of the appeal here.
And that was his age 30 season. So we were talking about that before. He's proof that you can be 30, and still have a really high-end fantasy season.
I think every single game, or he had one where he had a hamstring issue, and I can't remember if he. So. But he was there for every game. And look, he's not going to necessarily be the guy who stretches the field, but he will make the big catches. And again, it's the end zone.
He is an unrestricted free agent. I am assuming it would I want to see Mike Evans finish his career in Tampa. He's one of those guys where it's like, please bring him back.
My guess would be he lands back there. I think they run it back. They'll bring back Baker and sign Evans to a 2-3 year deal, something like that. But it could change, right? He's one of the top free agent receivers. So
I think the fact that they exceeded the expectations everybody had for them, like here they end up in the playoffs when everybody just thought they were,
they won a game. Yeah,
they were. Yeah. Just not going to produce anything. And the fact that they were able to do that, like, why change it when these guys are you're kind of at a point where, okay, things are running smoothly and there's no reason to disband it and start over at this point.
With Baker, those wide receivers, even how shaky that running back room is, Mike, it's surprising that the Buccaneers were able to be so good this year.
Not anymore. Not Rashad White.
That was a throwback.
He looked good in the second half of the season.
Yes, he did. All right, I got my second pick. I'm going to do what Stephania I thought was going to do. This one hurts because it's Fields' guy. I'm going to go with Deebo Samuel.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how I don't do Deebo here, because when I look at this situation, he is so unbelievably valuable in spite of the fact that I don't think he's going to be utilized like a runner. That was my big thing coming into the season, right? He's not going to get that usage like he did when he was used as a running back.
Wait till the Super Bowl.
And maybe in the Super Bowl he will, but for the regular season, they got Christian McCaffrey here. They got Elijah Mitchell. He's used more as a weapon around the line of scrimmage. And this year he did the same thing, 16.2 fantasy points per game. He still played 15 games. I don't see any reason why this goes down. I think this continues coming out of this year into next year. So I'm going to take a guy that I think is one of the best, if not maybe the best, gadget player in the NFL.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I don't want to we
just know he's going to miss a game or two. I mean, he's never played a full season. That's the only thing.
That's
Otherwise, he's been terrific when out there. Yep.
All right, Mike, you got one more to close out your top five.
Twice, or am I? No, it was twice.
And then we'll pause.
All right, we're going to figure this out. Okay. I'm going to take another 49ers receiver. I can't believe he's still on the board here. I'll gladly take Mr. Brandon Ayuk here. Do you know his targets were down this season by 10 from 2022? Targets were down, catches were down, touchdowns were down, but yards were way up for him this past season. Led receivers in yards per target, 12th in average depth of target, which was a big change. They used him down the field more often, 7th in receiving yards. He's now been top 15 back-to-back years. I'm getting him right here at 15th. I'll take him. Yeah.
You know what I found is that I'm more comfortable managing my fantasy rosters when I don't have my 49ers on. Because, if anybody's wondering why I'm not picking these guys, not because I don't have confidence.
It's like
it's like
bias.
no jinx, I don't want, the whole curse of Stephania Bell thing. I don't want to come.
I texted you at the beginning of the season and said, how crazy is it for me to say I'd rather have Brandon Ayuk over Deebo Samuel coming into the season? You said it's not crazy at all. There's reasons why Deebo could still be the guy, but I said, do you think if I make this decision, it's a crazy thing? And then we saw it this year. Deebo Samuel, wide receiver 12 in fantasy points per game. Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver 16. I mean, the idea that Ayuk was that high, wasn't even being drafted close to a top 20 wide receiver. But with Brock Purdy
and
he
continues to get better. He's another one whose maturation as a wide receiver has been incredible. Like, if you've followed his story closely from when he and Shanahan, there was almost a divorce of those two at the 49ers, and he really took everything to heart and worked on his craft, and he's always been a good route runner, but I just think his decision-making is better. And some of the catches he made this year, if you watch the games, as ridiculously as I do.
Yep.
So good.
All right, we are through 5 rounds. Let's take a quick look back at the top 5 picks that we have. Stephania, we're going to... Actually, Mike, let's look at Mike's team first. So, Mike, when we look at the top 5 wide receivers that you have drafted, we put them together here. You've got Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, Garrett Wilson, and Brandon Ayuk. That's a pretty good top 5.
I will take them.
Yeah.
Can I have a real team with those guys? That'd be cool.
Can you
Wouldn't that
imagine
be great?
if we
Yep.
only had 3-person fantasy leagues?
Okay,
we'd all
next
be
team.
winners.
We have enough time for like 1 minute per pick the rest of the way.
For the rest of the way. All right,
Yep.
look at Stephania's. All right, we'll look at my team. We'll save that. We'll go to my team next. I remember being that I got to draft Justin Jefferson and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I loved that.
Yeah.
With A.J. Brown, a little bit older, with Devontae Adams and Deebo Samuel. A couple of question marks maybe towards the second half of my top 5, but I like all of ththose guys there. And Stephania, when we look at your roster, obviously you have a bunch of really good players, in part because you got to draft first, which means you got CeeDee Lamb, which is great, and Puka Nacua, plus DJ Moore, Nico Collins, and Mike Evans, who just continues to produce year after year after year after year.
All good players.
All right. I want to put out a poll. If you are watching on YouTube or if you are listening right now as a podcast, go check it out at Fantasy Focus on the Twitter or at our ESPN/NFL. YouTube.com/ESPN NFL. Go vote to tell us who has the strongest team through the top 5 so far. Mike Clay, let's keep this moving. We're going to go much faster the second half.
All right. I like anyone named Michael Jr., like myself, so I will go Michael Pittman Jr. in this one.
Now we're sniping. Now we're
Yeah,
sniping.
he
That's where I wanted to
definitely
go.
exceeded expectations this year. Of course, there was no Anthony Richardson for most of the year, but that should just make the offense better as Richardson goes into his second year in the league. I'd like to see more touchdowns from Pittman, only 4, but the volume, the talent is all there, like Michael Pittman.
All right. Coming back to me then, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do here. I got 2 guys I got my eye on. One of them is Chris Olave. The other one is the guy I'm going to take, and that's Rashee Rice.
All right, fun.
The way that he ended the second half of the year, we were talking about who's going to come on, who's going to be the guy. Obviously, we looked at that huge target share. I know recently we've talked about how Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs have kind of reconnected. Rashee Rice hasn't just disappeared, though. He's still been a big part of that offense. I think he's going to continue to be a big part of that offense going into next year. So based on what he did, it's reminiscent to me, not exactly the same, but you get that second half rookie surge that we're looking for, right? Guy that is able to show you that he's got some more stuff that you'll be able to see in that second year. Amon-Ra St. Brown did it as a rookie, and Christian Watson did it as a rookie as well. So I'm looking at Rashee Rice, I think, is my number 6 wide receiver. Stephania.
I love that. Sort of forgot about him because it took so long for Kansas City to,
I
give
know.
him the targets that he deserved.
We were asking for it
I'm
all
going to go with the
season.
guy you said, Chris Olave, and the guy you were going to take. Well, Chris Olave is going to be
pretty
the guy
great.
that I'm going to take. Yep. I've been a Chris Olave fan for years. I felt like the Saints offense just never felt in sync this year. And I just don't think that happens 2 years in a row. At least I hope not.
And you know who his new play caller is going to be? Clint Kubiak.
Oh, that's
after the
right.
Super Bowl will be
That's right.
taking over as their OC, replacing Pete Carmichael. So there you go. Little
Olave
49ers
was
connection.
12th in targets
Well,
this
no
year.
wonder I must have felt that
You knew it.
vibe.
That's what
and
it
I
was.
knew
That's
it.
what you yeah. All right, Stephania, you got another pick?
How did that happen so fast? Okay. Well, I'm going to make Mike happy and take an Eagle here because I do love Devontae Smith. And I think, look, in that offense, and when A.J. Brown was not available, Devontae Smith sure stepped up. And I've always liked him as a receiver. Again, in a productive offense, you can't go wrong with one of the top 2 receivers.
I'm totally with you on that one. 100% agree. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go this direction. I'm going to draft another old guy. I want to take a young guy, but I want to.
Okay.
I know who you're
I think I know
taking.
you're taking it.
Yep.
So I'm going to go with one Keenan Allen.
Okay.
I'm going to go with
I
Keenan
debated.
Allen.
Oh, the number 3 scoring receiver this year.
Yeah, I
Ooh,
know.
tough
Like
one.
you're going so out on a limb.
Well, there are some changes for Keenan Allen. He's like 45 next year. What is he going to be? He's
Yeah,
like
but
32?
has
30,
age
yeah.
hasn't slowed him down other
Not yet.
than he had,
Couple injuries.
He has had a couple injuries, but
Still going to have Justin Herbert, but there are a couple things that are changing. Obviously, offensive coordinator is gone. He was only there for 1 year. When you're talking about, why am I blanking on my former quarterback's name? Kellen Moore is no longer there. And obviously, Jim Harbaugh coming in. So we'll see how that offense is going to be impacted by whatever Jim Harbaugh does.
bringing Greg Roman back.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to revisit their old 49er days, right? So now I think you're looking at that offense is going to change. And I think,
We'll see how
someone
that
like
works.
Keenan Allen definitely has a role in that style of offense for
Yep.
sure.
So a little bit older, but I like him as well, especially he just keeps producing. He's one of those guys. So I'm going to go with Keenan Allen for my 7th pick. Mike, who are you going with your 7th pick?
All right. Next for me, I'm going to go to DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf here. Why not? His production has been kind of down. He hasn't had the season-ending finishes that were, that we saw earlier when he had his breakout and was the number 10 scorer a few years ago. He's finished 23rd, 25th, 22nd the last 3 years. I'm picking him at 21 here. Look, since he's been drafted, he has 88 end zone targets. That's 18 more than any other player in the NFL. The goal line work is just unmatched for Metcalf. So I'm going to chase that for the number one receiver here in Seattle. An offense, again, that could change a little bit. Waldron's out. Of course, you're bringing Mike McDonald, defensive-minded there into Seattle. So we'll see, who ends up calling the plays there for Seattle.
How many end zone targets did you say?
88. Wow. Since he's been around. 18 more. Next closest is 70. So
how many did he have Did he lead the NFL this year as well, or was that just last year?
He had he was top 10. I don't have the number in front of me, but he was top 10 again in end zone targets. So every year of his career he's been
That's unbelievable.
Money in the bank in that department.
All right, when you look at top for what it's
By the
worth,
way,
Calvin Ridley led the league in end
He sure
zone
did,
targets. That's what it was.
I have that note at the end of my notes here because
DK Metcalf 16, wide receiver 4 for what it's worth. Okay.
All right, so am I up next here?
Yes, you have another
All right,
one.
I'm going to go with it's interesting. Devontae Smith goes ahead of Jalen Waddle because I've tweeted a comparison of them through their first 3 seasons on Twitter, and it got a lot of people talking.
Both went to Alabama, but what else?
Yeah, a lot of people were like, Waddle's clearly the better fantasy asset, so it's just kind of funny that Smith went ahead of him. I think it's debatable. So
Is it clearly? I think he
No,
may
I
be
don't
the
think
better
so.
fantasy asset.
I don't
but
think so.
not
I think you
clearly.
could. Essentially,
They're
the story
playing
is
very different roles though in their offenses.
they've kind of come together a little bit over the last couple of years, but their stats, including the playoffs, their first 3 years are almost exactly the same in catches, yards, and touchdowns,
which is interesting
incredible.
because they don't look at all the same when you watch them play on the field. They're
Yes.
2 very different styles.
Yeah, so it's interesting. But of course, those stats are almost identical, with Smith having played 6 more games and having played 1,000 more snaps than Waddle. So it's kind of interesting how that's worked out. But they've both been very productive. Just a safe floor for Waddle. Very early career Jarvis Landry-like production from him so far. Very similar. I actually compared those two. 1,000+ yards all 3 seasons. Doesn't have a lot of touchdowns or goal line work, but he just has that solid, consistent floor. So I'll gladly take Waddle here as 22nd off the board.
That's not the guy that I would have thought you would have compared Jalen Waddle to, was Juice Landry.
I mean, it's just you compare the stats,
the way
the
it
first
works.
3
Yeah,
seasons, the
absolutely.
way they're utilized. It just it's working out. Yeah.
All right,
It's very similar.
I have
Same
drafted
team.
enough old guys, so I'm going to go a different direction
Is it
here.
your turn?
I think so, right? Coming back from Mike.
I don't know. You're probably
coming
right.
back
I'm gonna go
around,
with
yeah.
my guy Tank Dell.
All right.
The other wide receiver there in Houston.
I love him, by the way.
Dude, he was
Love
so good. 15 fantasy points per game as a rookie. Came out of nowhere, to be honest. Looked fantastic. I am all in on what Tank can potentially be. Second year in this offense with CJ Stroud and the Texans just taking another step. Very excited to see what he's going to look like. But obviously, you saw the big playability. You saw what it is that he can do on the field. I don't have to tell you guys those things. There's a big part of figuring out. I think this year is going to be the Tank Dell or Nico Collins. How are you going to do it? Mike, you had said he throws the ball enough.
Yeah.
There should be enough room for both of these wide receivers
He
to
might
eat
be a
this
top
offense.
5, top 3 quarterback in the league. I mean, you would expect Stroud to be a little better in his second season, right?
Because
And
of
if
that.
that's the case, look out to see. And by the way, 8 games, he played most of the snaps. He was wide receiver 8 in fantasy points was Tank Dell. He was terrific.
Unreal. Unreal. All right. Stephania Bell is off the board. Which direction are you going to go?
I'm going to go with Jaden Reed.
Oh,
I don't have him on my sheet. That's the first one.
I did have him on my sheet.
All
right.
I wanted him.
And what does that mean? You don't have him on your sheet? Like you didn't.
He's not
see him
he's
going
just
that
outside
high?
my top 30. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, I'm going with the upside.
I had him at
And
29.
Did
So
you?
I did have him top 30 for what it's worth.
Well, and this is the part of the draft where you start worrying that other people are going to snipe your players,
Absolutely.
right? So, Jaden Reed, I just love what I saw from Green Bay as the season progressed. Like they started really clicking. You're like, whoa, this could be a potent offense. We've got star wide receivers in the making, but I really felt like Jaden Reed stood out to me of all. Christian Watson, elite talent, but the injury have just kept him off the field and the inconsistency there. Jaden Reed to me stepped up when it mattered. And thank goodness that
He looked good.
the Lions persevered, right?
Yes. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, I have
Jaden
to
Reed
say.
looks like very much looks like the real deal. Excited to see what he's going to look like next year, in part because Jordan Love looks like the real deal. He looked a lot better second half of the season. It looked a lot more consistent. So excited to see what those Packers wide receivers are going to look like. Stephania, you have a second pick here.
Yep. So I'm going to go with Jordan Addison.
Ooh.
Minnesota Vikings. And
I like it.
Hope for the best with the quarterback situation. Just don't know exactly what that's going to be. But again, we saw from Jordan Addison what we were hoping to see. I think there was a lot of optimism about what his potential could be.
Yep.
And then we saw him deliver, and he had an opportunity to do that more because of the injury to Justin Jefferson.
Concern with both of the guys you pick is that they were both way over their head in the touchdown department, and we saw a fall off in the target department down the stretch.
He's going to use that R word.
It's going to come. They both hit double digits, but in touchdowns this season. But a lot of mouths to feed, and Addison's target share really dropped off when Jefferson was there. He disappeared for a big stretch, even when Jefferson was out. And actually, Reed fell off late in the season as well.
Okay.
So
I'm not listening.
this is why we start picking them apart. So, but again, I no major issues in this area, but that's where I'd get picky.
Yeah, these guys have more things to be able to nitpick than the top 5 guys that we talked about, right? Mm-hmm. All right. The guy I'm going to go with. It's me. I'm so sorry.
She was ready to trash my pick.
Yeah, tell me who you want, Mike.
I'll take Justin Jefferson. Terrible.
How are those Eagles doing, Mike?
I already picked 2 of them, so we're doing good.
I'm going to go with another old man. Guys, Amari Cooper.
Yeah,
How's Amari Cooper not been drafted yet?
Well, I'll tell you why.
I don't love his quarterback situation.
Well, what happened to Deshaun Watson this year?
He played poorly and got hurt.
And what kind of surgery did he have?
The sclateral remax autosome.
I'm not the guy to ask that question to.
He had a repair of a glenoid fracture.
That's not real.
Big deal. And it's not that I don't think he can come back. It's that I'm going to need to see it and see him throwing and see him being the same before. That was my concern. Just letting the people know so they don't think I just glazed over Amari Cooper, who I thought had a fantastic season. And obviously when the two of them were playing together, it was great. And then obviously with Joe Flacco, he was also
and
great.
Obviously the year before that with Jacoby Brissett, he was fantastic.
But I don't know what's happening in Cleveland. And I worry if we get, Deshaun Watson, when he was hurt, before he had that one great game before he got hurt the first time. And then he was never really the same. And then he was done. If there's that adjustment period, I worry about its impact on
I will say
Cooper.
this. Cooper in 5 full games with Watson, 17.6 fantasy points per game, about 4 points more than when he was out. So if Watson is healthy and out there, they had a good connection there. But I don't think people realize that.
And even if he's not healthy and out there, it's not like Amari Cooper all of a sudden becomes a scrub. He's still a very good wide receiver.
26.
Exactly. That's the point.
Nobody called him a scrub.
All right, let's wrap this up quick here. Right?
All right,
so
10th
me
round?
for 2.
Yep, let's do it, Mike.
I'm going to go 27. I'm going to take Zay Flowers.
That's who I was going to do that.
I obviously a boneheaded drive there in the playoffs hurt their season, but otherwise was terrific in that game and really got better as the season went on this past year. So I like him a lot. And then my last pick here, this is going to be my final pick. I'll do it. I'll go with the old guy here, Cooper Kupp.
I wondered if it was going to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to go Cooper Kupp here. Still, in what was a kind of a comeback to earth season, a down season from what he's done in years past, 8.2 targets per game. I know it was down. He's 31, but he's going to be a short range slot guy. You've still have Matthew Stafford under center. Puka can be the 1. Kupp could be the 2, and he could still deliver as a wide receiver 3. So happy to get him here.
Yeah, I like that as well. I feel like he's still worth a top 30 pick given all the things that have happened. So I like where you're at. All right, so that's your 9th pick, right? Or was that your 10th one?
I think that's it, right? That was pick 28, if I'm not mistaken. So we got 2 more.
All right. So then I've got here.
Wait.
I got one more, and then you got one.
Oh, okay.
Is that right? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep, that's it.
I'm pretty sure.
No math.
I'm pretty sure. Is that
I'm marking him down. So we're at 28. That means 30 minus 28 is 2. That's 2 picks left. So you pick.
Did you pick 2?
Did you already?
Yeah, I picked 2 in a row.
Zay
Flowers,
Zay
Cooper
Flowers,
Kupp.
and Cooper Kupp. That's why you were so speedy.
Is Adam Thielen still on the board?
Sure is.
All right, I'm probably going to go with Chris Godwin. This is the spot, if I'm going to be honest, this is the spot where, like, right now when I look at this situation, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be somewhere in one of these last couple of spots.
I was just thinking about
but
that.
I don't want to pick him without knowing a team. That's kind of why I asked you before we started the show where we're at. So I'm going to go with Chris Godwin because, in part, these Bucs looked a lot better. We talked about it with Mike Evans. I think Baker Mayfield looked really good. I think Chris Godwin's going to be another season where he comes back, continues to do Chris Godwin things. Only 12.3 fantasy points per game. Didn't love that, right? Didn't score any touchdowns, which is why. 83 catches for 1,024 yards, only 2 touchdowns. So if that gets fixed at all, we're going to see a much better season from Chris Godwin next year. I like him. Again, wide receiver 30. I think you can do worse. Stephania.
All right, Stephania. Last pick.
I don't want to say Mr. Irrelevant in order to tie it all together to your quarterback, but.
So I was thinking about George Pickens, and then I remembered what happened.
Yeah, who their new play caller is?
Who their new play caller is.
Arthur Smith.
Mm.
So how about the guy that's
Drake London?
will benefit from Arthur Smith leaving.
Then I thought, what about the guy who will benefit from Arthur Smith leaving?
Would have been my next pick.
That would be Drake London. So that's where I'm going with my final pick Drake London. And God bless the Atlanta Falcons, and let's hope we get a lot more offensive production out of the entire squad this year.
A little bit jokes aside, but like it can only go up, right? For Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Like it's obviously it could go down, but like it really
and
can't.
Bijan.
Like everybody, it should get better for everyone in that offense.
Zach Robinson, PFF background, by the way, former NFL quarterback. He's been with Sean McVay and the Rams for the last 5 or so years. And how about, what did they do this year, right? Kyron Williams, outstanding in fantasy. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua were outstanding. I mean, there's definitely room for a change in this offense. They will not be nearly as run heavy as they were the past couple of years.
All right, let's take a look back at Stephania's full lineup. All 10 wide receivers that Stephania drafted. Again, starting at number 1, CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, DJ Moore, Nico Collins, Mike Evans were the top 5. At 6, Chris Olave. 7, Devontae Adams. 8 is Jaden Reed. I really liked that pick. Jordan Addison at 9 and Drake London at 10.
Can you imagine if you could really draft 10 wide receivers like that on a real
season's over?
Yeah, right? That would be so great. Mike, what are your thoughts when you look at this team? You're like the guy that does the projections, all the rankings. Yeah, what do you think about stuff?
I mean, look, I'm not going to say anything negative about any of these 3 drafts because we picked 30 of the top receivers. I mean, look at the right-hand column.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Olave, Smith, I mean, London, they could all be top 10 scorers next year. So it's awesome. That right column is so exciting because it's just loaded with young talent. All 3 are in their first 3 years. Olave, Smith, Reed, Addison, and London.
The what could be column is that second column of like how good they could be. Yeah. All right. Take a look at my roster. The top 10 wide receivers that I drafted starting: Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, and then Deebo Samuel were my top 5. 6 through 10 were Rashee Rice, Keenan Allen, Tank Dell, Amari Cooper, and Chris Godwin. I went old and young. Mike, I tried to balance a little bit of the youth.
I can't believe you didn't take Khalif Raymond or Josh Reynolds.
Donovan Peoples-Jones, Jamison Williams, maybe. I can't do Josh Reynolds right now.
He'll be a fun late round flyer.
Mike, how you feel about this? Anything stand out about my draft?
D-. No, it's great. It's great.
That's the same thing,
I'll give Stephania
right?
an A+. You get an A.
All right, I'll take an A. It's fine. All right, and we'll look at Mike's roster. His top 10 wide receivers: Tyreek Hill,
yeah, I like
Jamar
it.
Chase,
at the top.
Stephon Diggs,
Hill
Brandon
and
Ayuk.
Chase. Dang.
That's a great. Those top 4 are really great. Everyone looks really good.
Top 5.
6 through 10: Michael Pittman Jr., DK Metcalf, Jalen Waddle, Zay Flowers, and then breaking the mold, going with old man Cooper Kupp.
Old geezer, 31 years old.
Everyone has you know what? Every once in a while, something's going to break the model, right? That was you breaking the Mike Clay model, going with Cooper Kupp.
I want to say one thing about Cooper Kupp.
Because he's the old guy.
Yeah, 30. I'll take it.
I want to say one thing about
28.
it. So coming into this year, Cooper Kupp, we heard about the hamstring. I thought, given his work ethic, how he's recovered from injuries in the past, the fact that even the Rams came out and said this wasn't really so much of a new hamstring injury, but some old scar tissue stuff he was dealing with and some apprehension around the injury. I'm going to make a bet that this year everybody's going to be all scared off of Cooper Kupp because of what happened.
Hope so.
And that he is going to, because of the guy that he is, not happy with how the season started out and how that went. And I think we're going to see a different Cooper Kupp coming into training camp. He's going to be a different guy coming into the season. And I think you're going to get a great value in your fantasy draft.
All right. That would be nice.
That's my
I'm here for
prediction on Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp will be 31 this year for what it's worth. But speaking of predictions, let's talk about the Super Bowl. I'm going to start with Mike Clay because I think I know where Stephania's going to go. Mike, how do you pick this Super Bowl?
All right, I have my box score projection out there, the early version. I'll update it later this week if need be. My projection right now is Chiefs 23.
Okay.
49ers 25. Taking the Niners. And again, this feels just like the Bucs a few years ago. I felt sick to my stomach picking the Bucs that year over the Chiefs because it just destroying my microphone. All the momentum was with the Chiefs. Everyone was the Chiefs. You had to take Mahomes. You had to take the Chiefs. But the Bucs were the better team, and they won that game. I feel the same way. I just think the Niners are better.
Oh, God, that makes me... I don't know if I feel better or worse after that because now I'm so nervous. No, I love your pick, but, I'm nervous. I'm like, you're sick to your stomach. I am going to be sick to my stomach, getting on a plane, heading to Vegas tomorrow. I'm not going to feel right all week until this game happens. I picked the Niners over the Chiefs. I think that surprises no one, but I actually tried to think in my mind of how this game would go. I told you how I want it to go. I can't I actually can't remember the score I put in when I put in my ESPN prediction, but I
83
believe
to 13.
I believe. I also had this feeling that Jake Moody's going to have a couple clutch kicks. I just feel it. So
Ooh,
I
okay.
went with 27-21, I believe.
Okay.
Wow. I also took the San Francisco 49ers
all
to
right.
beat the Chiefs. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I think listen, this 49ers team looks as good as I think I've seen all year, outside of maybe the Baltimore Ravens, who also looked fantastic, but the 49ers are the team that's left standing. I think they are the best team in the NFL right now.
Yeah, look, the Chiefs got crushed by the Raiders. Like, that kind of stuff happens.
Every team got crushed by the Ravens for what?
No, the
it's-
Raiders.
Oh, the Raiders.
The Raiders. So it happens. You have
Yes.
them down games, and that was against the Raiders for the Chiefs. But, yeah, I mean, just, again, as long as Purdy doesn't make mistakes, I think they can win this game. They just have they're a stacked team.
They
loaded.
really, all three, defense, offense, special teams, they could dominate in all three. Everybody plays the way they're supposed to.
I'm taking the 49ers 34-24 over the Chiefs.
Got some offense.
All
All
right,
right,
some
cool.
points, guys.
Oh my gosh, I'm literally getting chills. I'm so nervous.
It's not
I'm
because
so
the air
excited.
conditioning kicked on. Although the
No.
AC did just kick in here, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. It's always fun. We will be back next Monday, not only to recap the Super Bowl, but I'm sure to talk about another positional group.
We'll
Probably.
figure it out.
We're going to
we have
talk
lots to
tight
talk
ends,
about.
maybe. Maybe
I
we'll
won't
talk
be here
some
next Monday.
quarterbacks.
Hopefully,
Stephania
I'll be
hopefully is celebrating. We love you guys. Make sure you have fun. Enjoy your Super Bowl parties. Don't forget to be kind to each other. We love you guys. We'll see you next week. Peace.